Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into the world of HVAC, but not in the way you might think. We're not talking about filters or thermostats. No. This is about a major shift happening in the industry, a refrigerant revolution, you might say, that's going to impact anyone with an AC or a heating system, especially if you're in California.
That's right. And the clock is ticking. We're talking about changes coming as soon as 2025, so we're here to give you a clear breakdown of what's happening, why it matters, and what you can do to prepare.
Okay, so first things first, for those who might not be familiar, can you give us a quick rundown of what refrigerants are and why they're suddenly in the spotlight?
Absolutely. Refrigerants are the unsung heroes of temperature control. They're the special fluids that make your AC cool and your heater heat. Think of them as tiny heat movers, absorbing heat from one place, like the inside of your house on a scorching summer day, and releasing it somewhere else, like outside.
Okay, so they're kind of like the circulatory system of our homes, moving heat around to keep us comfortable.
Exactly. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The refrigerants we've been using for years, like the well-known R-22 or Freon, are being phased out because of their environmental impact.
This is where I start to think about that hole in the ozone layer we learned about back in school. Is that what we're talking about here?
You're on the right track.
Right.
While the ozone hole issue is a separate but related environmental concern, the focus now is on something called global warming potential, or GWP. Think of it like a sunscreen's SPF rating, but for the planet. The higher the GWP, the more a refrigerant traps heat and contributes to global warming.
So the lower the GWP, the better for the environment.
Precisely. And that's why there's this big push to switch to low GWP refrigerants. It's a national effort to reduce our impact on climate change. In fact, there's a law, the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act, or AIM Act, that's driving this transition.
So the AIM Act is basically saying, hey, we need to get serious about finding climate-friendly solutions, even for our ACs and heating systems.
Exactly. And as with many environmental initiatives, California is at the forefront. They're not waiting around for the federal timelines. Starting January 1, 2025, California is banning the sale of refrigerants with a GWP above 750. That includes a very common one called R-410A.
Wow, 2025 is right around the corner. I bet a lot of people listening are thinking, wait, does this mean I need to replace my entire HVAC system? I'm curious, what are the most significant implications for homeowners here?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore in detail. The short answer is that if you have a system that uses these soon-to-be banned refrigerants, you don't have to replace it immediately. But there are some very important things to consider, especially regarding the long-term costs and availability of those older refrigerants.
Okay, so it sounds like while there's no immediate mandate to replace existing systems, there are definitely some compelling reasons why homeowners might want to start thinking about it. Before we get into that, though, I'm curious, what are these new low GWP refrigerants everyone's talking about? Are there specific names homeowners should be aware of?
There are a few key players emerging as the frontrunners. R-454B and R-32 are the ones you'll likely hear about most. These are the refrigerants new HVAC systems are being designed to use. What's interesting is that these new refrigerants require systems to be designed differently, which leads to some pretty significant advancements in efficiency and technology.
So it's not just a simple swap out of the refrigerant, it's a whole rethinking of how HVAC systems work. I'm already starting to see why this is such a big deal.
It absolutely is. It's not just about being environmentally conscious. It's about ushering in a new era of HVAC technology that's both smarter and more sustainable.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we've got this major shift happening, and California is setting the pace with these new regulations. I know a lot of homeowners are probably feeling a bit overwhelmed right now. What's the first thing someone should do if they want to start preparing for these changes?
The best first step is to assess your current system. You'll want to call in a qualified HVAC technician to get a professional assessment. They can tell you if your current system is compatible with the new low GWP refrigerants, or if an upgrade is necessary. They can also give you an idea of the overall health and efficiency of your system.
So it's a good idea to get a checkup even if you're not planning on replacing your system right away.
Absolutely. Think of it like going to the doctor for a checkup. It's always better to catch potential issues early on.
That's great advice. All right, so we've established that getting a professional assessment is a crucial first step. Now, for those who might be considering an upgrade, are there any particular advantages to doing it sooner rather than later?
There are definitely some compelling benefits to getting ahead of the curve. One of the biggest is that you could potentially avoid the price increases that are likely to come with both the new refrigerants and the equipment itself as demand goes up and supplies become more limited.
I can definitely see that happening. It's like anything else, early adopters sometimes get the best deals.
Exactly. Plus, you'll have a wider selection of systems and technicians to choose from before the rush hits.
Okay, so potentially saving money and having more options are two big pluses. What else should homeowners consider?
Well, there's the environmental aspect, of course. You'll be doing your part to reduce your carbon footprint by using a more eco-friendly refrigerant.
That's a big one. People are becoming increasingly conscious of their environmental impact, and this is a tangible way to make a difference.
Absolutely. But it's not just about feeling good about your environmental contribution. These new systems are also designed with energy efficiency in mind. That means you could see significant savings on your utility bills over time.
So it's a win-win for both your wallet and the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, while there are many compelling reasons to consider upgrading, I know there are also some concerns. A lot of people are probably wondering about the costs involved in switching to a new system, especially since we're talking about a whole new generation of HVAC technology.
That's a great point, and I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds. I'm also curious about what happens to those who choose to stick with their existing systems for now. How will these changes affect them in the long run?
Those are all important questions, and we'll definitely delve into those details next.
Perfect. Let's take a moment to let all of that sink in, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into the specifics of what to expect with both upgrading and maintaining your system in this new era of refrigerants. All right, so before the break, we were getting into some of the nitty-gritty of these refrigerant changes, and I have a feeling things are about to get even more interesting. We left off talking about the cost considerations of upgrading to a new system, which I imagine is a big concern for a lot of people.
It definitely is. It's a significant investment, and it's natural to wonder about the financial implications. The good news is that there are resources and incentives available to help homeowners make this transition, and we'll be sure to highlight those later on. But first, let's address the question of what happens to those who choose to hold on to their existing systems for now.
Yes, let's dive into that. I think there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this. For instance, if someone's system is still working fine, are they really going to run into problems after 2025?
That's where things can get a little tricky. Remember how we talked about R-410A being phased out? Well, even though existing systems can still be maintained, the availability of that refrigerant is going to steadily decrease after the 2025 deadline.
So it's not like these refrigerants will suddenly vanish overnight, but it's more of a gradual squeeze on the supply.
Precisely. And as with anything, when supply dwindles, prices tend to rise. This means that repairs and maintenance for those older systems could become increasingly expensive over time. Imagine needing a refrigerant refill in a few years. You might find yourself facing limited options and potentially much higher costs.
That makes sense. It's like trying to find parts for a vintage car. They become more scarce and costly over time.
That's a great analogy. And there's another layer to this. Repairs for those older systems will likely rely heavily on reclaimed or recycled refrigerants.
That sounds like it could create a whole secondary market for these refrigerants. I wonder what kind of regulatory oversight there will be.
It's definitely a developing landscape, and it's something for homeowners to keep in mind. The key takeaway here is that while you can continue using your existing system for now, it's essential to factor in these potential long-term costs and challenges. It might seem tempting to delay the inevitable, but it could end up costing you more in the long run.
So we've talked about the potential downsides of sticking with an older system. Let's flip the script and focus on the advantages of upgrading to a newer, low-GWP refrigerant system. We touched on cost savings and environmental benefits, but I'm curious, are there any other perks that homeowners might not be aware of?
There are actually quite a few. We often think of HVAC systems as just heating and cooling, but newer models are becoming much more sophisticated. Think of them as smart home devices that contribute to overall comfort and well-being.
That sounds intriguing. So we're not just talking about temperature control anymore.
Not at all. Newer systems are designed with enhanced features that go beyond basic heating and cooling. They often come with improved air filtration systems, which can be a significant advantage for allergy sufferers or anyone concerned about indoor air quality.
That's a huge plus, especially with growing concerns about air pollution and allergens.
Exactly. And some systems offer advanced humidity control, which can make a huge difference in overall comfort. No more battling that clammy feeling in the summer or dry air in the winter.
It's amazing how much technology has advanced in the HVAC world. I'm starting to think of these new systems as less like appliances and more like integrated home health solutions.
That's a great way to put it. They're becoming increasingly integrated into the smart home ecosystem, allowing for more precise control and automation, ultimately leading to greater comfort and efficiency.
So it's not just about saving money on energy bills or reducing your environmental impact. It's about creating a healthier and more comfortable living environment.
Precisely. Now, I know what you're thinking. All these bells and whistles must come at a hefty price, right? Well, while it's true that newer systems do have a higher upfront cost, it's crucial to consider the long-term return on investment.
Okay, let's break down those costs a bit further. What are some of the factors that influence the price tag on a new system?
It really depends on a variety of factors. The size of your home, the type of system you need, the complexity of the installation, and the specific contractor you choose will all play a role in the final cost.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. It sounds like getting multiple quotes from reputable contractors is key to getting a clear picture of the costs involved.
Absolutely. And this is where research comes in. You want to make sure you're working with a qualified and experienced contractor who can properly assess your needs and recommend the right system for your home.
Speaking of qualified contractors, this brings up another crucial point. We're talking about a whole new generation of HVAC technology here, which means finding a technician who's up to speed on these advancements is essential.
You're absolutely right. Not all HVAC technicians are created equal. With the transition to these new refrigerants, it's more important than ever to find a contractor who's specifically certified to handle these systems.
So it's not just about finding someone who can fix a leaky pipe. They need to have specialized knowledge and training in these new refrigerants and technologies.
Exactly. You want to ensure the installation is done correctly and safely, and that your system is properly maintained to optimize its performance and lifespan.
Okay, so finding a certified technician is a must. Any other advice for homeowners navigating this transition?
One piece of advice I always give is to ask questions. Don't be afraid to inquire about the contractor's experience with low-GWP systems, their certifications, their understanding of the latest regulations. It's your home and your investment, so it's crucial to feel confident in the expertise of the person you're hiring.
That's great advice. Knowledge is power, and in this case, it can also save you a lot of headaches and potentially even money down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, I know we've thrown a lot of information your way. Let's take a moment to recap the key takeaways before we move on to some frequently asked questions.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's pause here for a moment and give everyone a chance to digest everything we've covered so far. All right, we're back and ready to tackle this final stretch of our HVAC deep dive. Before we wrap things up, I thought it would be helpful to address some of the most common questions and concerns homeowners might have about this refrigerant transition. I know I still have a few swirling around in my head.
That's a great idea. There's a lot of information to process, and it's natural to have questions. So let's jump right in. What's on your mind?
Well, first off, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if they absolutely have to replace their system before this 2025 deadline. It's a big investment, and if their current system is still humming along, they might be tempted to put it off.
That's a common question, and it's understandable. The short answer is that you don't necessarily have to replace your system immediately, especially if it's still functioning well. But as we've discussed, there are several factors to consider, including the long-term costs and availability of those older refrigerants.
Right. It's not just about the legality of it, but more about weighing the pros and cons of upgrading versus maintaining an older system in the long run.
Exactly. It's a personal decision based on individual circumstances, but it's essential to be informed about the potential implications of each choice.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, for those who decide to upgrade, I'm curious about the lifespan of these newer systems. With technology evolving so rapidly these days, is there a concern that these new low-GWP systems might become obsolete quickly?
That's a valid concern, but the good news is that these systems are designed with longevity in mind. The HVAC industry is well aware of the need for durability and reliability. While technology will continue to advance, these new systems are built to last, just like their predecessors.
That's reassuring to hear. Nobody wants to feel like they're constantly chasing the latest and greatest tech, especially with a major investment like an HVAC system.
Absolutely. You want to make sure you're getting a system that will provide you with reliable and efficient performance for many years to come.
Okay, another question I often hear is about the safety of these new low-GWP refrigerants. Are there any specific concerns homeowners should be aware of?
Safety is always a top priority, and the HVAC industry has stringent guidelines and protocols in place to ensure the safe handling and installation of these new refrigerants. That said, it's crucial to work with a certified technician who has the proper training and expertise to handle these systems. They'll be up to date on the latest safety standards and procedures.
So it's really about emphasizing that DIY is not an option in this case. It's about finding a qualified professional who knows the ins and outs of these new systems.
Exactly. It's not worth taking any risks when it comes to safety.
Now, for those homeowners who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of these changes, what's your best piece of advice? Where should they start?
My advice would be to take a deep breath and start with a simple first step. Get a professional assessment of your current system. A qualified HVAC technician can provide you with valuable insights into the condition and efficiency of your current setup and help you determine if upgrading is the right move for you. They can also answer any specific questions you have about your system and the transition to low GWP refrigerants.
That's great advice. It's all about getting informed and making an empowered decision. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to touch on something we discussed earlier, the potential impact of these refrigerant changes on the housing market. It's fascinating to think about the ripple effects this transition might have on home values, building codes, and the overall real estate landscape.
It certainly is. As these changes take hold, we'll likely see a shift in how homes are valued and marketed, with energy efficiency and the use of low GWP refrigerants becoming increasingly important selling points. It could even lead to a premium being placed on homes with newer, more sustainable HVAC systems.
That makes a lot of sense. Buyers are becoming more savvy about energy efficiency and sustainability, and these factors are likely to play a larger role in their decision-making process.
Absolutely. And it's not just about buyers. We'll likely see builders incorporating these new technologies and standards into new construction, making low GWP refrigerant systems the norm rather than the exception.
So it's a domino effect, with these changes influencing both existing homes and the construction of new ones. It's truly a paradigm shift in the HVAC industry and beyond.
It really is. It's exciting to see how this transition unfolds and how it contributes to a more sustainable future.
Well, I think we've covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the reasons behind this refrigerant revolution, the implications for homeowners, the benefits and challenges of upgrading, and even the broader impact on the housing market.
We've packed a lot into this episode, and I hope our listeners feel more informed and empowered to navigate this transition.
I think so too. It's been a fascinating and insightful conversation. A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoy discussing these important topics and helping homeowners make informed decisions.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of HVAC and refrigerants. We hope you found this episode informative and helpful. Until next time, stay curious and stay cool.